The Angels are one of the biggest punching bags in sports right now, and it's for good reason. They have two of the greatest talents to ever grace an MLB field, and yet can't construct a winning team around those superstars. It's an upsetting scenario, one that may come to a frustrating end with Shohei Ohtani and his looming free agency. But instead of joining in on the dog pile, I want to take Angels fans back to some simpler times. A little over 2 decades ago, the Angels climbed mountain and won their first World Series in franchise history. Many people have seen clips from that fateful Game 7, but I feel like the roster that got Anaheim to that point gets forgotten. It was largely the same cast of characters that had produced a losing team the year prior, yet through key trades and players just stepping up, they improved by over 20 wins and snapped a long playoff drought. From there, they became a key example of just getting yourself into the dance and giving yourself a chance, as they went from wildcard underdogs to unlikely champions. And today, we're going to tell the whole story. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Also ring that bell for all future notifications. In 2001, the Anaheim Angels ranked as a bottom 10 team in weighted runs created plus, home runs, runs scored, and had just 2 hitters in their everyday lineup that were above league average. They got good efforts out of the top of their rotation and bullpen, but they lost 87 games and finished 3rd in the AL West. The team was as good as 5 games over 500 in the first week of the final month before taking an absolute nosedive, losing 20 of their next 22 games to close the season. It didn't help that the 2001 Mariners were also the greatest team of all time in the regular season. For the Angels, it was their 15th consecutive season not making the playoffs, despite posting winning records in 3 of the previous 4 seasons. This was a team that simply couldn't get over the hump. In the 40 years of the Angels' existence, they were 0-3 in playoff series and had never made a World Series. The seat was getting hot under third-year manager Mike Scioscia, who had regressed after a winning season in 2000. Now, they had pieces to build on. They had 25-year-old Troy Glaus, who was coming off a 40 home run, 100 RBI season, his 2nd in a row. Though he was aging, former Rookie of the Year Tim Salmon was still manning right field and doing it well. Garrett Anderson handled center field and also brought in over 120 runs batted in. Jared Washburn and Ramon Ortiz held together at the top of the rotation, and Troy Percival led a promising bullpen. But they needed more. While the Angels didn't spend big in the ensuing offseason, they made a flurry of key trades to bolster areas of their roster. They cut bait on injured former MVP winner Mo Vaughn in a trade with the Mets, where they acquired some much-needed rotation depth in Kevin Appier. And this would go on to help make up for a lackluster season from one of their key free agent signings, Aaron Seeley. The Angels had the worst production of any American League team in the designated hitter spot, with a team weighted runs created plus of 70. To help solidify that area, they acquired Brad Fulmer, who gave the Angels far more production than they had recently seen, with a 133 OPS plus and 19 home runs in 130 games. Despite these fixes, the Angels were still very much reliant on their in-house talent to improve vastly. Early on, it looked as though the status quo would be maintained in the 2002 season. The Angels lost 14 of their first 20 games to fall to last place in the AL West. That's what made what happened next all the more shocking. Immediately after that dreadful start, they won 21 of their next 24 games to go 10 games over 500. A big reason for that was Troy Glaus, who had been a constant for the Angels through the years. From 2000 to 2002, his 17.7 wins above replacement was 12th highest among all position players, as he combined solid defense at third base with ridiculous offensive numbers. He was by far the most potent hitter in the Anaheim lineup, and he was one of just 11 players since 2000 with 3 separate seasons of over 30 home runs, over 100 RBIs, and 10 or more stolen bases, and the only player to do so every year from 2000 to 2002. They also benefited greatly from guys stepping up in general. Middle infield duo Adam Kennedy and David Eckstein produced far better than recent years considerably, both posting an OPS plus above league average while playing fantastic defense. After a below average 2001, former Rookie of the Year winner Tim Salmon had a return to form with his best offensive season in the past half decade, including 88 RBIs and a 133 OPS plus. Come the end of June, the Angels sat 6 games over 500 with their offense firing on all cylinders. The pitching staff was doing their part, but one man in the rotation struggling was Scott Schoenweis, a former top draft pick. In need of big innings, the Angels called up 23-year-old top prospect John Lackey in late June, and he impressed early. He hurled 108 innings in the second half alone, managing a respectable 3.66 ERA in 18 starts. The Angels starting rotation wasn't full of household names, but it was anchored by Jared Washburn, a lifetime Anaheim Angel to that point. He tossed the best season of his career with 32 starts and a 3.15 ERA, tossing over 200 innings and finishing 4th in Cy Young voting that year. He would be the ace of the staff heading into their playoff run. Troy Percival, an all-star of the season prior, was even better in 2002. He locked down 40 saves with an ERA under 2 and received MVP votes for the first time in his career. They saved their big gun for the tail end of the season though, waiting until the final week of September to call up 20-year-old flamethrower Francisco Rodriguez, also known as K-Rod. He struck out 13 batters in 5 2/3 innings to help lift the Angels to the playoffs, where he'd play a much larger role despite not being able to buy a beer yet. This was perhaps the most talented roster the Angels had seen in their last decade of play. The Angels developed their iconic rally monkey in the second half of the season, probably the most symbolic part of their famous team. But they sat in third place in the AL West as late as August 26th, despite being 25 games over 500. But unlike last season where they sat outside the playoff picture before completely falling apart, this time they were able to put things together when it mattered the most. They won 16 of their next 17 games to gain a 1-game lead in the division, but in the end, the A's were too much to handle. The A's 20-game win streak ensured that the Angels didn't gain a single game. All in all, the Angels went 19-1 from August 29th to September 15th, but were unable to catch the A's. The 99-win Angels won enough to snatch second place in the West and the AL wildcard spot. The Angels were finally returning to the playoffs. The Angels had just 2 games of playoff experience on their entire roster heading into October. They were certainly a nice story, but I think everyone assumed their adventure would end abruptly when they lined up with their division series opponent. Standing in their way was the New York Yankees, who had won the American League pennant in 5 of the last 6 seasons and won 4 of those World Series as well. And it didn't appear as though the scrappy underdog Angels stood a chance of ending that hot streak, especially after Game 1. In a 4-4 game tied in the 8th, Troy Gloss put Anaheim ahead with his second solo shot of the game, but after getting the first 2 outs with nobody on in the 8th inning, the bullpen imploded, allowing 2 walks and then this 3-run bomb to Bernie Williams. Mo locked down the 9th inning like he always did, and the Angels let a golden opportunity to steal a win on the road slip through their fingers. They faced a 1-run deficit in the 8th inning of Game 2 before Anderson and Gloss's back-to-back jacks off El Duque gave them a late lead. The Yankees made it interesting in the 9th, but Troy Percival was able to lock down his first of many playoff saves, sending the series back to Anaheim tied at a game apiece. But the Yankees were relentless, jumping out to a 6-1 lead in the 3rd inning of Game 3. The Angels faced a mountain to climb, looking to rally against ace Mike Mussina in a pivotal game of the series. Tim Salmon and Adam Kennedy led the offensive charge though, knocking out Mussina in the 4th inning and making it a 1-run game by the 6th. The heroics would be reserved for Scott Spezio, who tied it with an RBI single in the 7th. And then Darren Erstad, whose double put Anaheim ahead in a must-win game. Troy Percival once again tossed a 1-2-3 9th inning to put the Angels a game away from one of the greatest upset wins of the young 21st century. With all the momentum in the world, the Angels made the crazy dream a reality by stomping on David Wells for a monster 8-run 5th inning in Game 4. It was poetic, watching every member of the lineup contribute in what turned into a series-winning rally. It wasn't done alone by one star, but rather a team of guys that had shown so many strides of improvement in the past year. Jared Washburn, who had anchored the staff all season long, tossed the best start of the series. And of course, Troy Percival was on the mound for the last out of the game as the Angels vanquished the Yankees to win their first playoff series in franchise history. The celebrations ensued, but it was obvious the work wasn't done yet. Next in line were the Minnesota Twins, the same team that upset the 100-win Oakland team that had thwarted Anaheim all season long. Though the Twins snagged Game 1 of the series, the rest of the ALCS would be all Angels, and while the offense took the spotlight against the Yankees, it was the pitching staff that led the charge against Minnesota. Kevin Appier, Jared Washburn, and John Lackey combined for a 1.85 ERA in 24 1/3 innings in their 4 starts. John Lackey specifically shined, outdueling veteran ace Brad Radke in a pivotal Game 4 victory, while K-Rod and Percival hurled 7 2/3 shutout innings out of the bullpen. In the lineup, Troy Gloss struck again in Game 3, hitting a massive go-ahead home run in the 8th inning to put the Angels ahead 2-1 in the series. From there, they never looked back, winning the ALCS in 5 games, sealing the series with another explosive inning. The Angels lineup, who had been quiet for most of the series, put up 10 runs in the 7th inning to clinch the World Series appearance. They were led by Adam Kennedy, of all people, who had just gone 1 for 10 in the games prior, but clubbed 3 home runs in their Game 5 victory, taking home ALCS MVP in the process. It was another improbable victory for a team that was quickly piling them up. Things would stay close to home as their final team to battle resided in the Bay Area, led by arguably the greatest hitter in the history of baseball. The Angels got punched in the mouth early in their first World Series game ever as ace Jared Washburn coughed up 3 home runs in a bad start. Troy Gloss did his best to keep the Angels in the game by smacking 2 more home runs, taking him to 6 total in 10 playoff games for the Angels. But both teams' bullpens dueled after the home run barrage, and the Giants came out on top in a 4-3 victory on the road. But like they had done all postseason long, the Angels responded to adversity well, putting up a 5-run first inning in Game 2. Kevin Appier let the Giants creep back in as he and the bullpen allowed 9 runs to score after the lineup worked to tie things up again through 6 innings. innings, it was Francisco Rodriguez that delivered a signature performance, tossing 3 perfect innings of relief to save the day. Tim Salmon's 2-run homer gave the Angels a lead, and who else but Troy Percival came on to lock things up, securing the 5th save of his postseason run and knotting the series at a win apiece. The Angels took Game 3 with another double-digit run barrage backed by solid work out of the bullpen, but the Giants worked to tie the series again in Game 4, rallying from a 3-0 deficit against John Lackey to nab an essential 1-run victory. This paved the way for a very impactful Game 5 matchup, setting aces Jason Schmidt and Jared Washburn against each other. What everyone assumed would be a pitching duel turned into an absolute blowout dud in San Francisco's favor. The Giants knocked out Washburn after just 4 innings before teeing off on the bullpen. By the end of the offensive onslaught, the Giants had beaten down the Angels 16-4, sending the series back to Anaheim, needing just one more victory to snap their own 50-year championship drought. In Game 6, Russ Ortiz and Kevin Appier traded scoreless frames through 4 innings, but the Giants looked poised to win the World Series with clutch home runs from Shawan Dunston and then Barry Bonds, with San Francisco needing just 9 outs to win the World Series. But manager Dusty Baker pushed his luck by having Russ Ortiz start the 7th inning, and he subsequently gave up 2 hits. He called for the bullpen to face Scott Spiezio when the first baseman proceeded to add another clutch moment to his resume. His 3-run home run instantly made things interesting again, amplified by Darren Erstad's leadoff home run in the 8th inning to make it a 1-run game. Baker turned to his reliable closer, Rob Nen, in a 2-on, nobody-out scenario, but in danger of blowing a 5-run lead, the last hitter the Giants wanted to see up was Troy Gloss. This doubled to the gap and probably put the Angels up 6-5, paving the way for yet another Troy Percival save. From the jaws of crushing defeat, Anaheim scored 6 runs in the final 2 innings of this game to force Game 7. Maybe it was the deflation of watching the trophy slip through their fingers so close to the finish line, but Game 7 wasn't very competitive at all. Garrett Anderson cleared the bases with this incredibly clutch 3rd inning double, and a 4-1 lead is all Anaheim would need. Rookie John Lackey was ready for the stage, and he was brilliant, twirling 5 strong innings. The bullpen, again led by K-Rod and Percival, led the charge with 4 shutout frames, and against all odds, the Angels had come out on top. In a run where a Dynasty Yankees team, a trio of Game 1 losses, and a 5-run deficit with 9 outs to go all stood in their way, the Anaheim Angels won the 2002 World Series. It's perhaps one of the greatest underdog stories in modern baseball history, and felt like a springboard to a potential era of success for a team that had floundered for so many years prior. Led by Mike Scioscia, the 0-2 championship win spurred a turnaround for the franchise. They won the American League West Division 6 times in the next 11 seasons, with many of the faces from their World Series team like John Lackey and Francisco Rodriguez hanging around for the future. That decade of success seems like a far cry from the recent Angels teams that we've watched, and while many grow frustrated with each passing day with the status of the current Angels, everyone was a fan of this team when they won it all 2 decades ago. Who knows if the Angels will ever reach these heights again, but just in case they don't, I'm glad we took the time out today to talk about this truly awesome 2002 team. And hey, maybe this 2023 team can take some notes and find some magic themselves. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and now a word from today's sponsor.
Guys, today's video was sponsored by Shady Rays. Look at that, guys. You should take on the summer sun with gear that is built to last, and the best premium polarized sunglasses are available right now at Shady Rays. Durable frames, extremely clear optics, Shady Rays offers premium products at very affordable prices, and you can look as good as this. And guys, even if you're clumsy like me and you're constantly dropping your sunglasses and on the verge of breaking them, Shady Rays has you covered. If you lose or break your pair, even on day 1, the all-time mess up, they will send you a new pair for free. So wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. Also, not only am I clumsy and break my sunglasses or lose them, sometimes my eyes just hurt and I need a relief from that, and Shady Rays has great blue light glasses as well. If you're like me and you're staring at your computer for long periods of time like I am editing my videos, these are essential. So guys, we have a sweet offer for you today. Right now, you can go to shadyrays.com and use my promo code JOLLY, and you can get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Click the link in my description, use code JOLLY, 50% off 2 pairs of premium polarized sunglasses. Thank you to Shady Rays for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.